Part 2. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Faye. Chapter 11. Chapter 11 Acting Bravely or Stupidly. Early the next morning. Outside the fitting room in a shopping mall. Li Ju is sitting on the sofa, with a lazy expression and a leisurely posture. I couldn't help but yawned, my peach blossom eyes narrowed, and I squeezed out a few crystal tears. Thinking about Ji Yunsha dragging her up early in the morning to go shopping with her, the surrounding air pressure became very low. He lowered his head, fidgeting with his round nails, and there was obvious anger in his eyes. What's wrong with this man? Getting up early in the morning to go shopping? Brush dash. The door to the fitting room was opened, and a light blue tube top dress came into view, with silver cloud patterns embroidered on the skirt. Paired with white flat shoes, the look is gentle and elegant. Ji Yunshu asked, "How is this body?" Li Ju raised his eyelids. "Very good." Ji Yunshu rolled his eyes, "Can you be more perfunctory? Go to the mirror, turn around, and nod with satisfaction." I said, "What on earth are you going to do, get up early in the morning and buy clothes?" Li Ju couldn't help it. Ji Yunsha smiled slightly and said, "This will be considered as your accommodation fee last night." Li Ju rolled his eyes and asked, "You don't even have money to buy a piece of clothing?" "Of course, I am very poor, unlike someone who lacks money." Ji Yunsha bit the last three words very hard. Li Ju twitched the corner of her mouth. Did what she said in the group hurt this young heart? Shaking his head helplessly, he stood up resignedly and went to check out. "Go to the counter, take out a black card, and hand it to the shopping guide lady." Then she pointed to Ji Yunsha behind her and said, "Please help me wrap up the clothes she is wearing." "Okay, okay." The shopping guide lady took the black card and was extremely shocked. This kind of black card has no limit and is limited worldwide. It is not something that ordinary people can have. It seems that this young girl has a lot of background. After paying the bill, Li Ju suddenly looked down at his phone, and then put the black card directly into Ji Yunsha's hand. "You take this card first, and you can buy whatever you want. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." After saying that, he left in a hurry. Ji Yunsha was left standing alone, holding the black card in his hand, and the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. Why does she feel like she is being taken care of? UN bar. The door of the box was suddenly pushed open. Li Ju looked at the wine bottles scattered on the ground and the man sitting there drinking, frowned, and asked, "Where are the people?" The man shrank when he saw it was Li Ju, and said quickly, "Go to the toilet." At this moment, the door of the box was pushed open again. A tall figure walked in and was obviously taken aback when he saw Li Ju. Then he turned around and ran away. However, Li Ju grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the box. A man who is about 1.8 meters tall is being dragged away by a man who is about 1.7 meters tall. This looks like a coward. But the man dared not make a sound. It wasn't until Li Ju dragged him into the bathroom that the man said weakly, "This is the men's bathroom." Immediately afterwards, he was mercilessly thrown to the edge of the sink by Li Ju. Bump. The huge body knocked against the edge of the sink, making a muffled sound. "Iffies!" He gasped in pain. He raised his head and saw a fair-looking boy reflected in the mirror in front of him. His eyes were bloodshot and he had blue stubble on his chin. He looked embarrassed and haggard. Li Ju stepped forward, suddenly stretched out his hand, pushed his head down hard, and turned on the faucet. The bitingly cold temperature made him shiver, and his mind, which was originally confused due to alcohol, suddenly became much clearer. Li Ju let go of him, and her uncontrolled body slid down the sink and sat helplessly on the ground. "Look at what you look like now," Li Ju said coldly. Shan Mingzi raised his head slightly and said, "Sister Li Ju." The voice is as thin as a mosquito. "You still know me?" "I didn't mean it, I just. In the end, he himself could not speak any more. Say what? Said that he was fired because he had a fight with a customer and was feeling depressed. Did he come to the bar to get drunk? Now that his mother's illness is getting more serious, there are more places to spend money, but he just lost his job. He is so useless. What's going on? Li Ju asked. She just received a call from Shan's mother, saying that Shan Mingzi didn't come home last night and she was worried that something had happened to him, and asked her to help find someone. The results of it? He got drunk with a group of gangsters in a bar. I was fired, Shan Mingzi said in a low voice. Reason? Fight with guests. Li Ju raised his eyebrows, fighting. Shan Mingzi saw that she didn't speak, so he continued to explain, I really couldn't stand the domineering look of that rich second generation. My colleague accidentally spilled the soup on his shoes, and he actually asked my colleague to kneel down and lick them clean. I can't be angry, just. Then how is your colleague? Li Ju asked. I lost money to the customer and was fined a bonus by the manager. That's all. Shan Mingzi nodded. Li Ju almost laughed out of anger. Shan Mingzi, should I say that you acted bravely or that you were stupid? End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 12. Chapter 12 Life-Saving Grace. What's the result of standing up for others? They're fine, but you've lost your job, Shan Mingzi. Do you have any brains? Li Ju's tone became colder. Those who can go to hotels like this all over the world are respectable people. This kind of thing is very common. How is it that the second-generation rich man and his colleagues are their own affairs, and do they need him to meddle in their own business? Shan Mingzi lowered his head, his eyes were slightly red, and his voice was choked, I'm sorry. It was because he was impulsive. Li Ju sighed and handed him the phone in her hand. Your mother is very worried about you. Shan Mingzi stood up from the ground, took the phone, walked aside, leaned against the wall, and called Shan's mother. A few minutes later, he returned the phone to Li Ju. Sister Li Ju, he asked suddenly, do you think I shouldn't come to the imperial capital? Perhaps the mother and son should not leave that place. Li Ju remained silent and did not answer him. Hey, Zij, what's wrong with you? Your hair is wet. Back in the box, Shan Mingzi's buddy saw his embarrassed look and asked in surprise. Then he looked at Li Ju quietly. What on earth did these two people do? Haven't this woman beaten Zij again? Last time Zij was drinking with them, this woman suddenly rushed in and beat Zij up. Later I found out that this person was Zij's sister. How can there be such a sister? Shan Mingzi picked up the coat thrown on the ground and said, Kwanzi, I'm leaving first. Kawako saw that Shan Mingzi's expression was obviously wrong, so he said nothing more. Okay, let's meet again next time. There's still a next time? Li Ju glanced at Kawako coldly. The latter immediately felt a chill rising from the soles of his feet. After leaving the bar, Li Ju looked at Shan Mingzi, who had been following him, and said, in the future, I'll stop associating with those bad friends of yours. Shan Mingzi scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Well, actually Kawako and the others are very good to me. In Li Ju's increasingly cold eyes, he swallowed the rest of his words wisely and nodded. What are your plans? The two were walking on the street, and Li Ju suddenly asked. Shan Mingzi kicked the pebbles under his feet and said nonchalantly, what other plans do you have? Just find a new job. Actually. Just as Li Ju was about to say something, a phone ring interrupted her. Hello, who is this? Then, she saw the face of the person in front of her suddenly turn colorless. What's wrong? She asked. Shan Mingzi looked at her with a pale face. My mother, something happened. When the two of them arrived at the hospital, the single mother had already been pushed into the emergency room. Shan Mingzi leaned against the wall of the hospital, took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. looking a little tired. His voice was hoarse. This is the third time. Since coming to Daijing, the single mother has been sick 3 times. The disease of a single mother is the root cause of the disease that occurred when she was young. It has been recurring for so many years. Now that she is older, the possibility of cure is very small. Not to mention, she still has knots in her heart. Li Ju was also leaning against the wall, holding a plastic stick in his mouth. Your mother's illness cannot be delayed any longer. Shan Mingzi had a headache. I've tried to persuade her several times, but she just didn't listen. Every time he mentioned this matter, Shan Mu was always vague. In the final analysis, it is still because of my sister. The door to the rescue room opened. Who are Shan Yu's family members? A doctor asked. Shan Mingzi stepped forward quickly. I am. The patient is out of danger, but I advise you to be mentally prepared. She. The doctor sighed and said no more. Shan Mingzi felt a little tight in her chest. Although she knew Shan Yu's condition, she still felt a little sour when she heard what the doctor said. I understand, thank you doctor. The doctor gave a few more instructions and left. In the ward, the single mother was lying on the hospital bed, her face pale. She was obviously only in her 40s, but her face had many wrinkles like an old lady in her 60s or 70s. She was so thin that she was almost only skin and bones. No one spoke, only silence. The atmosphere was stagnant for a moment. Well dash. A faint sigh sounded, and the person on the bed slowly opened his eyes. Mom dash. Single aunt. As soon as Shan's mother opened her eyes, she faced Shan Mingzi's enlarged face. There is still stubble on his face. Somewhat disgusted. She tilted her head slightly and looked to the side. Jeju, you're here. Hearing Shan's mother's name, Li Ju felt helpless. Aunt Shan, let me see you. Shan Mu's eyes were full of smiles. Oh, what's so good about a bunch of old bones? By the way, are you okay at the Li family? Well, that's good. Don't deal with me, Shan's mother said. I know better than you what Li Hong is like. That man only has himself in his heart and has no family affection at all. With Li Ju's temperament, it is inevitable that he will be bullied by Li Hong in the Li family. Looking at Shan's mother's worried eyes, Li Ju smiled and said, Aunt Shan, don't worry, no one can bully me. The single mother sighed. Jeju, I'm sorry for you, you shouldn't have been involved. It's okay, I did it voluntarily, so I consider it as repaying your life-saving grace. Shan's mother suddenly widened her eyes and said disapprovingly, what kind of life-saving grace? I just bandaged your wound. What kind of life-saving grace is it? What's more, she has done enough for their mother and son over the years. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 13. Chapter 13. His sister is really awesome. No matter what, it was you who saved me. This is a fact. If the single mother had not brought the injured woman back, the consequences might have been really serious. That's all, you kid is too kind-hearted. Shan Mingzi next to me felt that she really couldn't listen anymore. Li Ju is kind-hearted? What an earth-shattering joke. If the people she dealt with heard this, they would be sick to death. Does he have a filter in his eyes? Mom, don't worry with her bad temper, it's good if she doesn't bully others who dares to bully her. The single mother got angry when she heard this. You heartless person, how much has your sister Li Ju helped us over the years? Since your sister left. At this point, Shan's mother suddenly paused, her eyes a little sad, and continued, she almost treats you as a biological brother, and now she goes to the Li family's muddy water for you and your sister. You see what you said, is it human language? Shan Mingzi complained in his heart, do you want to beat him as your own brother? But on the face of it, he followed Shan Mu's words and said, yes, yes, I was wrong. Shan Mu snorted coldly, ignored him, and turned to talk to Li Ju. Shan Mingzi. Who is the dear one? Li Ju helped Shan's mother sit up and asked, Aunt Shan, why did you suddenly become ill? Shan Mingzi was also surprised, yes, Mom, I remember I called you just now, why did you get sick? Looking at the confused looks of the two people, Shan Mu coughed slightly uncomfortably, her eyes evasive, and she looked a little embarrassed. Well, when you called me, I was playing mahjong. I lost several games in a row, and then suddenly I won. I was so excited that I couldn't control it for a moment. Li Ju. Shan Mingzi. Shan Mingzi felt a dull pain in her temples. His mother's illness requires rest, and the doctor has repeatedly told her not to get excited, but she's doing well. He could already imagine how dark the people who played mahjong with her were feeling. The person who was playing mahjong together just passed out the next second. Otherwise, he would have a psychological shadow on mahjong for the rest of his life. Li Ju was also helpless. She knew the character of a single mother very well, but she didn't expect her heart to be so big. She said with a serious face, Aunt Shan, you can't do this again. When Shan's mother saw that Li Ju was a little angry, she quickly showed weakness and said, okay, Aunt Shan knows. Then he held Li Ju's hand and said warmly, Juju, you must take good care of yourself when you are alone in Li's house. It's autumn now, so you can't be cold at night. You kid likes to kick the quilt, remember wear more clothes, don't get sick, I'm not around you, be careful with your diet. I know Aunt Shan. Mom, have you forgotten that you have a son? Shan Mingzi got goosebumps all over the place when she saw the scene of them being a loving mother and a filial daughter. You still dare to say that? Let me ask you, where were you last night? You didn't come home all night. If I hadn't asked Juju to find you, do you think you wouldn't even remember me as your mother? She was going to be so angry. If this hadn't been away from home all day, she was really bored. How could she play mahjong with others? Shan Mingzi hesitated, not daring to tell her that he was unemployed. It's nothing, I'm just in a bad mood. I went out to have a few drinks. Don't come here, I'm your mother, and I don't know you yet. Juju, tell me, what's going on? Li Ju ignored Shan Mingzi's pleading look and said, his boss abused his power and unspoken rules for new employees. He looked disgusted and couldn't eat, so he resigned. Shan Mingzi. Shan Mu said, that's it? The two of them chatted with the single mother in the ward for a long time. Finally, the nurse came in and said that the patient needed to rest and they left. After leaving the ward, Shan Mingzi asked, Sister Li Ju, why didn't you just say that I was fired? Li Ju glanced at him sideways, what's the use? Do you want to worry Aunt Shan? Shan Mingzi choked. Go to MZ to report tomorrow. Shan Mingzi suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. What? MZ, a well-known consortium in the world, suddenly emerged a few years ago and quickly became one of the top 10 in the world. The boss behind MZ has been firmly in the top 3 on the world's richest list and has never fallen down. Last year, in order to open up the domestic market, MZ opened a branch in Daijing, which gave Daijing a big impact. Let him report to MZ? It's not what he thinks, is it? That. Shan Mingzi couldn't believe it, Sister Li Ju, that MZ. Mine Li Ju said. Shan Mingzi was really confused now. Didn't hear you clearly. Shan Mingzi stuttered a little, listen, heard clearly. Has a problem? No. He answered mechanically, his brain having lost the ability to think. Then don't talk nonsense and remember to get up early tomorrow. Oh. By the time he reacted, Li Ju had already gone far. hum. Ah. He wouldn't even dare to dream about it, okay. What a bastard. As expected of her sister. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Faye. Chapter 14. Chapter 14 Charity Auction. Boss, you are too cruel, you actually kicked me out of the group. On the phone, someone was complaining to Liju. Say something quickly. The factory matter has been settled. Liju hummed indifferently. Boss, where are you? In a taxi. As he spoke, Liju covered his cell phone with one hand and said to the driver, Master, please turn left at the next intersection. Okay dash. Taxi, no, boss, where's your car? Then buy another one. Do not have time. Liju curled up her slender fingers and tapped them rhythmically on her thigh. I remember you seem to have several. The man immediately retorted, no, I didn't. You remembered it wrong. Joke. How could his babies withstand Liju's ravages? Old, boss. I heard that Wei was bullied. Liju raised his eyebrows and said with ridicule, the information is quite good. It is difficult for him to keep an eye on the imperial capital while he is far abroad. Ahem, so is she okay? You guess. Liju's lips curved, those cars of yours are pretty good. The man gritted his teeth and said, you pick one, and I'll transport it back to you right away. Liju nodded with satisfaction, deal. So how is she? That guy Jochi just told him that Wei was bullied, but he had no idea what happened next. So worried. She is my little aunt after all. Liju clicked his tongue, I don't usually see you admit it. He then asked, what can I do if I'm here? The man breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's good. Is this why you made a long-distance phone call across the ocean? Of course not, there is something more important. He paused and then said, boss, here comes the mission. The president personally issued it, SSS level. Liju sneered, don't he know that I'm on vacation now? I know, but the president said that only you can do this. Oh. Do you know about the charity auction in imperial capital? Have no idea. She has been abroad all year round and has never been to the imperial capital. If it weren't for, she has never heard of any auctions. As the name of this auction suggests, the wealthy people in imperial capital get together to auction off valuable items that they don't need, and all the money is donated to charity. Liju sneered, if you want to do charity, don't you just donate money directly? Hold a charity auction. Trouble. This is also a symbol of status. Isn't it true that rich people gather together to show off their wealth in public when they have nothing to do? The man was speechless. He cleared his throat, boss, those are not important, the key is this auction. The man lowered his voice and said, there are strange stones in this auction. Liju narrowed his eyes and said with danger in his tone, what did you say? I don't believe it either, but it's true. Liju's eyebrows were filled with deep-seated anger. The leisurely look in his eyes was no longer the same as before, and the irritability hidden in the deepest part could no longer be suppressed. The whole person looks like an angry beast. The air in the car condenses instantly. The driver in front shivered and felt a little cold on his back. Why is it so cold suddenly? I glanced at the sky outside. Well, the sun was shining brightly. Although it was autumn, the residual heat of summer had not completely dissipated. Is he delusional? Liju was very irritable now. He clenched his hands tightly and his knuckles were cracking like jade. Stuff like strange stones are of no harm to them. But if it fell into the hands of ordinary people, the consequences would be disastrous. Especially, the people who participated in the auction were all from famous families in the imperial capital. Once someone takes a picture of a strange stone. Grass. Liju cursed a few words in his heart, suppressing his emotions, With a dark and unclear look in his eyes, what is the content of the mission? The president told us to bring the strange stone back. It was certain that she would bring back the strange stone, but she still had a question: why did the strange stone appear in the imperial capital? Well, the man hesitated. I don't know, the president is still investigating. If our people hadn't accidentally seen the auction list this time, I'm afraid we wouldn't know about it now. Even he would scold the president for being unreliable. How does his dignified president only know about such a big thing now? Li Ju said in a deep voice, there is a spy in the association. The exotic stones are top secret in the association. Apart from the president, only a few directors of the association know where the exotic stones are stored. Now that strange stones have appeared in the imperial capital, there is no other explanation except that there is an inner ghost. Furthermore, he was able to take away the strange stone from the association without letting anyone discover it, which shows how much power this insider has in the association. Well, I guess so. Okay, I understand, leave it to me then, he added. Tell that old man to clean up the association quickly, even if those dirty things come to block it from time to time. He is really bored. When I talked to him about this before, the old man always said that life was too boring, so I left those people alone to have some fun for themselves. It's okay now, it's a lot of trouble. The man's mouth twitched. I know. Li Ju put down her cell phone and touched the mole at the corner of her eye. There was unconcealable irritation in her eyes. What kind of bad things are these? End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Look who is looking for death. Li Ju lowered his head and glanced at the auction date that was sent to him. Next Friday. A week. Enough. Back at the clinic, Li Ju almost tripped over what was in front of her as soon as she opened the door. A huge sofa. Between the door and the wall. Blocked the way in. Li Ju's eyes twitched. What is this? Gudong. There was a noise from upstairs. Li Ju stepped over the sofa and went upstairs. I opened the door and was speechless again. Clothing bags are everywhere, brand new cosmetics sets are stacked on the bed, and designer bags are thrown on the floor. Li Ju looked at the logos on the packaging bags. They were all valuable brands. Giving Ji Yunchu a black card is a wrong decision. Are you moving them all home? Ji Yunchu, who was squatting in front of the closet and emptying out his old clothes and putting new clothes in, looked up when he heard this and said, "You're back." She was holding a piece of clothing that she had just bought last year, and threw it into the cardboard box beside her without mercy. It's time to go shopping. Li Ju kicked off a bag at her feet and leaned against the door. What you bought is more than enough to buy your clinic, not to mention the rent for your stay. Ji Yunchu followed her words directly. So, do you want to consider supporting me? Come on, you're such a spendthrift. Ji Yunchu curled his lips and made a sound. You should take care of yourself first. I have to put all these away. Ji Yunchu has a misophobia, and now she is going crazy. I would have known I wouldn't have bought so many. This place would have turned into a pig's nest. Then you still buy it? It's not like you don't know me. Ji Yunchu is a woman who has no other hobbies but her favorite shopping. Even if you have already bought it, you still can't help but buy it again. Li Ju stood there, quietly watching her struggle, and uttered a sentence after a while, so there is a reason why you have been the poorest one in these years. All the money was used to buy these things. It's no wonder that he is still just a psychiatrist running this small clinic. Ji Yunchu couldn't help it. I've been very restrained in the past few years, but your black card brought me back to my original form. In the final analysis, you still have a weak mind. Li Ju complained, and suddenly saw a corner exposed under the pile of clothes on the bed. She stepped forward, stretched out her fingers and twisted them. Is an invitation letter. It still looks a bit familiar. Charity auction. Where did you get the invitation? Ji Yunsha raised his head and glanced, that, a patient gave it to me and asked me to take a look. Li Ju curled his lips, and it took no effort at all. You spend so much money on me, you have to show something. What do you want to do? Li Ju shook the invitation in his hand and said, it belongs to me. Okay. It was just a charity auction, and she didn't plan to go to it anyway. But why are you going there? I don't think you are usually keen on charity. Li Ju lowered her eyebrows and looked at the address on the invitation, with a spine-chilling smile on her lips. Go and see, who is looking for death. Then he said to Ji Yunshu, Lao Chi, do me a favor. Li family. Mom, are you telling the truth? Li Yun sat on the bed and looked at Su Su sitting opposite in surprise. I don't know what I thought of, but a hint of shyness appeared on my face, like a young girl in love. Of course, can Mom still lie to you? This auction will be held at the club owned by the Lu family, and second young Master Lu will definitely be there. Su Su held Li Yun's hand and looked at her expression, feeling very happy in her heart. Her Yuner has liked the second young master of the Lu family since she was a child. The two are also in the same school and have a good personal relationship. Unfortunately, because of the two families, no one can pierce the window paper. It would be best if the relationship between the two could be confirmed through this auction and they could marry into the Lu family. But Li Yun was a little worried. This auction is so important, Dad may not agree to my going. Su Su touched her head and said, don't worry, I told him and he has agreed. Li Yun's eyes immediately burst out with surprise. Really? That's great. No one knows how excited she is now. That's brother Shaokai. She has had a crush on her brother Shaokai for so many years, the second son of the Lu family. This time she must seize the opportunity and make him her boyfriend. Su Su looked at Li Yun's happy face and wanted to laugh. Looking at you, you haven't become the Lu family's wife yet. Mom dash. Li Yun had a blush on his face, feeling a little embarrassed. Seeing that she was shy, Su Su didn't laugh at her anymore. Okay, you should prepare well in the next few days. Li Yun got out of bed excitedly and called to make a custom dress. Su Su watched her movements with a smile, but he was thinking about other things in his mind. The Lu family is considered a well-known family in the imperial capital. If they can get married, it will undoubtedly be a great help to the Li family. But Lu Shaokai has always been a carefree person. He had troubles with many female students in school and also had troubles with some female teachers. If Li Yun really gets married in the future, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find the position of the main wife. She had to do something to clean up all the troubles for Li Yun. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 16. Chapter 16 Who? At this time, Li Yun didn't know Su Su's worries, so he only focused on dressing himself up. I want to show the most beautiful side of myself to Lu Shaokai. Time flies. Li Yun sat in the car, lowered his head to straighten his dress, and checked today's makeup again. Have a perfect smile on your face. Take a deep breath and get out of the car. There will be a party before the auction starts tonight, and everyone attending the auction will gather in the hall. This is the best time for her to express her love. Su Su had told her before she came that everything was ready. All is ready except for the opportunity. She believed that Lu Shaokai would be deeply moved by then, and the two of them would become a much anticipated couple. Thinking of this, Li Yun grinned. Yuner, are you ready? Li Hong on the side asked lovingly. His daughter has been very outstanding since she was a child, and she has never let him worry about her. He has always known about her and Lu Shaokai's affairs. The Lu family and the Qi family have always been on good terms, and the Qi family has been gaining momentum over the Li family in recent years. If the marriage with the Lu family can be achieved this time, the relationship between the Li family and the Qi family will also be eased. The best of both worlds. Li Yun showed a generous smile, as if everything was under control. Don't worry, Dad, it'll be okay. Li Hong nodded with satisfaction. Yun Yun, you are finally here. The woman was wearing a light yellow dress, she looked pretty, and she came with elegant steps. Wrong, long time no see. Wu Zhairong looked at Li Yun, her eyes a little aggrieved, her tone slightly sour. Yeah, it's been a long time, I thought you had forgotten me. Wu Zhairong is a popular little girl in the entertainment industry recently. Although her fame is not as good as that of A-list stars, she is still very popular. Originally, she was not qualified to participate in tonight's occasion. But who made her Li Yun's best friend? The senior executives of Wu Zhairong's entertainment company also received an invitation to the auction. I heard that she had a good relationship with Li Yun, so I decided to bring her with me, hoping to establish a relationship with the Li family. Hearing her complaint, Li Yun was helpless. How could I forget you? I really have a lot of things at home recently and I can't take care of you. Speaking of this, Li Yun lowered his eyes and looked a little lonely. Wu Zhairong looked at her and suddenly thought of the illegitimate daughter who had just entered the Li family that she had heard about recently, and thought to herself that she really didn't like to pick up any of the pots. When the illegitimate daughter entered the door, Li Yun, the real daughter, must have felt uncomfortable, but he still hit her at gunpoint. What a shameless person. He immediately said, "Oh, look at you, I was just joking, how could I take it seriously? I can't really blame you." Li Yun smiled, stretched out his hand to hold her arm affectionately, like a good sister. I knew Wrong wouldn't be angry. With a coquettish tone, Wu Zhairong couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yun, you are really. Seeing the two people's closeness, Li Hong was very pleased. He didn't want to disturb the two of them, so he said, "Okay, Yun'er, you and Wrong haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's go play for a while. There's still some time left for the party." Li Yun was very happy and said to Li Hong, "Thank you, Dad." Wu Zhairong also said, "Thank you, Uncle." Li Hong nodded, said yes and walked away. Wu Zhairong directly took Li Yun to the top floor of the club. The top floor of the club is a huge sky garden. The Lu Group spent huge sums of money to build it, and it has now become a symbol of the club. There is a fountain in the center of the garden, surrounded by exotic flowers and plants carefully cultivated by gardeners. The gentle breeze blows at night, and the subtle fragrance floats. Wu Zhairong pulled Li Yun to sit on a bench near the fountain and asked, Yun, how are you doing recently? Your illegitimate daughter didn't make you angry, did she? Li Yun shook his head. No, sister, she is very easygoing. As soon as she finished speaking, Wu Zhairong sneered, don't say nice things for her. I've heard about it all. She had heard nothing good about Li Ju from the crew these days. Yun, I know that you have always been knowledgeable and courteous, and you can't be rude and abusive when encountering this kind of thing, but I really can't stand it anymore. That Li Ju is a who destroys other people's families. Li Yun frowned and interrupted her, hey wrong, don't say that. What did I say? What I said is true. I can even fall asleep at the Yin family birthday banquet. I have never seen such a rude person. Wu Zhairong was furious. Is a person like Li Ju worthy of becoming the daughter of the Li family? She glanced at Li Yun again, feeling rather resentful. You are really soft-hearted. Her mother is a mistress, and she actually has the nerve to come to the door? If I were you, I would just drive her out of the Li family and let her she went to the street to beg for food. Wrong. Li Yun seemed to be unable to listen any longer, so he stopped Wu Zhairong sternly. Stop talking, sister, She is also my father's daughter. After all, this is a fact, and grandpa likes sister very much. He will be very unhappy if he hears what you say. Wu Zhairong's face darkened when she saw Li Yun, her neck shrank, and her voice weakened. I'm not wrong. Ah! Suddenly, a light breeze blew by in the evening, and a chuckle came to the ears of the two of them. The laughter was very light and cold. The two of them could not help but freeze at the same time. Who? Everyone please comment a lot. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. I'm happy to beat you. The evening wind brought a slight chill, not cold, but it gave the two of them goosebumps. Who? The sound of rustling footsteps came from the trees behind him that were pruned to the height of a person. Wu Zhairong and Li Yun held their breaths and stared at something. Under the gaze of the two men, a figure slowly walked out of the darkness. The woman was wearing a tube-top black short skirt. She was tall and slim, with a slender waist. The short skirt reached her knees, revealing her slender white legs. Her slightly curly long hair was hanging loose. She reached out her hand and tucked a few strands of black hair behind her ears. Li Ju looked straight at them calmly with a pair of peach blossom eyes. Her eyes were cold and dangerous, and the tear stain at the end of her eyes was very light but attractive. Sister, sister. Li Yun's heart skipped a beat when he saw Li Ju's calm eyes. There was no emotion or anger in Li Ju's eyes, and a low, hoarse, and clear voice sounded, a lowly person? A mistress? Going to beg for food on the street? Huh. Li Ju studied these words carefully, taking a step forward every time he said a word. Wu Zhairong suddenly had the illusion that Li Ju's every step was stepping on her heart. She backed away imperceptibly, grabbed Li Yun's arm hard, and swallowed. That's right. I'm talking about you, you who destroys other people's families, ah. Before she could finish her words, she screamed and fell to the ground uncontrollably. The right half of the fair face quickly became red and swollen, and a slap mark appeared, which was hideous and terrifying. Li Yun's eyes tightened, and he quickly stepped forward to help her up. Wrong. Are you okay? Li Ju moved her wrists and looked condescendingly at Wu Zhairong, who was lying on the ground. Some things can be said, but some words are wrong. You have to pay a price. The tone was calm, without a trace of ripples, but it made people's hearts palpitate. Li Yun's face was slightly ugly, and her eyes were complicated. She didn't expect that Li Ju was actually nearby and heard what they said. I didn't even expect that she would do it directly in public. She supported Wu Zhairong and said to Li Ju, Sister, Rong has always been straight-tempered, and she is a bit open-minded. Don't mind. Straight-tempered. Yeah, don't take it to heart, she. What if I take it to heart? Li Ju looked at Li Yun with faint eyes. Sister, if you hear someone talking about you behind your back, would you mind? Li Yun choked. Wu Zhairong covered her swollen cheek with one hand and pointed at Li Ju with the other, her voice trembling, You dare to hit me? Li Ju looked at her and said directly in her tone, You dare to speak against me? What did I say about you? Did I say something wrong? Li Ju chuckled, Whatever you say is your right. I want to beat you because I am happy. You dash. Wu Zhairong was so angry that her whole body trembled. Miss Wu, right? I heard that you are a star and a public figure. If you don't know what to say or what not to say, it doesn't matter. I'll teach you. Don't worry, it's free. Guaranteed. Teach. Guaranteed. You will. Li Ju said the last few words one by one. Wu Zhairong was so angry that she brushed away Li Yun's hand that was supporting her, raised her arm and slapped Li Ju. Unexpectedly, Li Ju clamped her down easily. She struggled to break free, but Li Ju's hand held onto her did not move at all. Immediately afterwards, Li Ju raised his other hand. Ah dash! Wu Zhairong fell to the ground again, and a slap mark appeared on the other side of her face, which looked extremely symmetrical. Li Ju flicked her other wrist, looked at Wu Zhairong's miserable state, and clicked her tongue. You open your mouth and keep your mouth shut, you bitch, who do you think you are? How can you be more noble than anyone else? You are just an actor after all. Li Ju was full of aura and stabbed Wu Zhairong again without hesitation. I am also the daughter of the Li family. No matter what happens, my grandfather will support me. What about you? If you peel off the shell of a star, who are you? How dare you be here? Yell at me. Listening to Li Ju's sarcastic words, Li Yun's face turned even uglier. She always felt that Li Ju's words were not just for Wu Zhairong. She was about to plead, sister. Shut up. Li Ju interrupted Li Yun's words, sighed, and said, sister, you are young and are deceived. I can understand it, but look at her, what she said is disgusting and dirty. How can such a person be your friend? Li Yun's face turned even more livid. Does her words mean that she is blind and cannot recognize people well? Li Ju stepped forward, stretched out his slender fingers, lifted Wu Zhairong's chin, and asked playfully, did you just say, that I destroyed other people's families? Li Yun quickly explained, no, sister, wrong didn't mean that. I'm afraid Miss Wu hasn't figured out the situation yet. Li Ju pointed at Li Yun in front of her, you are wrong. I did not destroy her family. After all, my father has never acknowledged that I am his daughter since the day I entered the house. She let go of her hand. Wu Zhairong seemed to have been suddenly drained of strength and could not hold on. Li Ju continued, and I remember that not long ago, my good father took his sister and his daughter to travel abroad to relax. Tisk. The husband and wife are loving, the father is kind, and the daughter is filial. This is a well-known model family in the imperial capital. She looked at Wu Zhairong on the ground and asked softly, do you think, this seems like I have destroyed the family? They have never regarded me as a family member. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. Substituting one thing for another. Sister, how can you say that, in my father's heart, you are also his daughter? Li Ju raised his eyebrows, oh? Really? The smile on Li Yun's face was a little stiff, yes, of course. Speaking, he pulled Wu Zhairong up from the ground, wrong, hurry up, apologize to your sister. What happened tonight is indeed their fault. If the trouble gets bigger, it will be difficult to solve it by recruiting others. Not to mention, she has more important things to do later. Li Yun squeezed Wu Zhairong's arm secretly, and his sharp nails dug into the flesh. Iffies. Wu Zhairong took a breath in pain, lowered her head, her hair was messy, and the two slap marks on her face were extremely funny. She looked at Li Ju with hatred in her eyes. Even though he was unwilling to give in, he still said, yes, I'm sorry. Damn it. Li Ju, just wait for me. Just as Li Ju was about to speak, he suddenly paused, and a hint of meaning flashed in his eyes. She glanced at Li Yun, turned around and left without saying anything. At this time, no one noticed that the earring on Li Ju's left ear was shining with a strange purple light. After Li Ju left, Wu Zhairong couldn't hold it back any longer, and tears fell from her eyes. She has never suffered this kind of injustice since she was a child. Even after her debut, the company wanted her to be friends with Li Yun, and even treated her as an ancestor. Who dared to show her mercy? But Li Ju actually dared to hit her? How dare she? Wuo, why did you ask me to apologize just now? I didn't do anything wrong, it was all that who bullied me too much. Okay, wrong, don't cry. If you didn't apologize just now, my sister might not be sure what she would do. Li Yun comforted him. When Wu Zhairong heard this, she cried even harder, this is so bullying. Who does she think she is? She is so arrogant. Li Yun took out a handkerchief and wiped Wu Zhairong's tears. Okay, wrong, let's not talk about this for now. I will take you to deal with the injury. In the lounge. Wu Zhairong was sitting on the sofa. A waiter squatted in front of her and applied an ice pack to her face. The subordinate was careless and used too much force. Iffies. Wu Zhairong suddenly grinned in pain. Kicked him over. The waiter fell to the ground, and the ice pack in his hand hit Wu Zhairong's smooth thigh. A biting coldness instantly hit my legs. Wu Zhairong felt even more irritated, and her anger could no longer be suppressed, so she directly picked up the ice pack and threw it out. The ice pack hit the waiter. He groaned but did not dare to say anything. It's rubbish, even an ice pack can't be applied. The waiter bowed his head. The Wu Zhairong I saw on TV before always looked innocent, kind, and considerate, but who knew that she was actually like this in private? Bad, domineering, eldest lady temper. Li Yun sighed and waved the waiter to go out first. Picked up the ice pack on the ground and applied it to Wu Zhairong's face. Okay, wrong, let's apply it on your face first. Wu Zhairong took the ice pack and couldn't bear to swallow it. Yun, you have to make the decision for me. What to do? As soon as Li Hong opened the door and walked in, he heard Wu Zhairong's words. After seeing her face clearly, he asked in surprise, Wrong, what's wrong with your face? The other side. Li Ju folded his hands on his chest and leaned lazily in the corner, watching Li Yun help Wu Zhairong walk away. Is what you just said true? She spoke suddenly. The earring on the left ear flashes again. That's a mini communicator. Of course, I saw your sister's sweetheart with a famous lady with my own eyes. Tisk. The two of them kissed and hugged each other, it was so touching. The voice of gloating about misfortune sounded. Li Ju said, that's such a pity. What are you sorry about? My good sister didn't get to see the scene, and I didn't get to see the show either. Do you feel any regrets? Ha, too. Li Ju's lips curled up, but it doesn't matter. I heard that my sister will confess her love in public later, and it will be a good show. Life is full of drama, your life watching the drama is really nourishing. How about I give it to you? No, I don't have the patience to play with those scum, I'm afraid one of them won't be able to hold back and stab them to death. Li Ju stood up straight and stretched, okay, Lao Chi, let's get down to business. Oh, according to the information found, the strange stone was brought out by the Jian family. Li Ju frowned and thought carefully about the wealthy families in the imperial capital, Jian family. The one who came to the imperial capital a few years ago. Yes, the Jian family is in the jade business. They came to the imperial capital a few years ago. They were well known in City D and almost monopolized the jade industry. I heard that the head of the Jian family got the strange stone by chance. He felt that it's a rare piece of jade, and I happened to take it out at an auction. Li Ju squinted his eyes, City D? I remember. It seems that. But some are not sure. What's wrong, boss? Fine. So, boss, are you planning to take a picture of the strange stone? Li Ju curled her lips and smiled mysteriously, no, you can still steal. Stealing, how to steal, boss, don't forget who are the people here tonight, you said that the president asked you to bring the strange stone back without disturbing anyone. Don't worry, I know it. Since you can't steal blatantly, then just steal and replace the pillars. There is a little cutie who makes me go faster. I reflected on it and it seems that I am quite lazy. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 19. Chapter 19 Sneaking in Secretly. Li Ju turned off the communicator and lowered his eyes. The index finger rubs the pad of the thumb back and forth. That was her usual thinking action. D City. 4 teams. She doesn't believe it if all this is a coincidence. But if what happened this time really has something to do with the 4th team, that's really complicated. Li Ju wanted to smoke a cigarette to calm down, but suddenly realized that she had quit smoking. Li Ju smiled helplessly. She's used to it. Sometimes it's really scary. She looked up at the sparse stars in the night sky. A voice rang in my ears, when you are lost, the stars in the sky will take you home. Go home. This low murmur was not heard, and was blown away by the evening wind and disappeared without a trace. Li Ju stood there for a while, and suddenly felt tired. She looked at the time and saw that it was still early for the auction to start. Peach Blossom Eyes looked around carefully. Decided to find a private place to relax for a while. Li Hong originally wanted to find Li Yun, tell her that Lu Shaokai had arrived, and ask her to seize the opportunity quickly. After learning that she was in the lounge, he hurried over. As soon as he walked in, he saw Wu Zirong with a swollen face like a pig's head. Wrong, who did you let hit? When Wu Zirong saw Li Hong, she covered her face and complained pitifully, Uncle, it's all that Li Ju. Li Ju. Wu Zirong nodded. Li Hong frowned and the corners of his lips tightened. Why is Li Ju here? At this auction, the invitations were all from the upper class. How could Li Ju, an illegitimate daughter, appear in a place like this? Li Hong asked, did she beat you? Wu Zirong nodded. Li Hong's eyes were immediately filled with anger, you bastard. Seeing that he was angry, Wu Zirong immediately added fuel to the fire, Uncle, that Li Ju not only beat me, she also bullied Yun Yun. What? Li Hong's eyes widened in disbelief, and he turned to look at Li Yun with a serious expression, Yuner, is what she said true? Li Yun lowered his head, his eyes unclear, and said hesitantly, no. Dad, don't misunderstand sister. Having said that, she looked like she was angry but dared not speak out after being bullied. Suddenly Li Hong's face turned as dark as the bottom of a pot, so dark that he could drip ink. He gritted his teeth and said, okay, very good. This rebellious girl sneaked into the auction secretly and dared to bully you. She is really lawless. As soon as these words came out, Wu Zirong and Li Yun raised their heads in surprise and looked at Li Hong at the same time. Dad, did my sister sneak in? Li Yun asked. Li Hong snorted coldly, it must be. Just her, how could she have an invitation letter? I didn't give it to her. What else could it be if she didn't sneak in? Oh my God, Li Yun exclaimed, covering his mouth and saying in disbelief, Sister, you must be too brave. How courageous. She is deliberately trying to make him angry to death. Li Hong felt the veins in his temples throbbing. He told the people behind him, go, find Li Ju and bring her to me. She knew how to cause trouble for him all day long. When she found him, she would lock her up for a few days and teach her a lesson. Yes. Wu Zirong stood aside, her face still aching, but her eyes were full of sinister smiles. Li Ju, Li Ju. You are really seeking death. How dare you sneak into the auction? I want to see how you make a fool of yourself in public later. Then. She touched her face, calculation flashing in her eyes. These 2 slaps, I want you to pay them back 1,000 times. The night is getting darker and the cocktail party is about to begin. People in the hall gradually gathered, drinking, and it was very lively. The top floor of the clubhouse. The silence here contrasts sharply with the hustle and bustle of the hall. All around you could hear the rustle of the wind blowing through the grass. The fountain raised a huge curtain of water, and then fell down loudly, just like the silver stars in the sky overturning and scattering in all directions. The moonlight, accompanied by the sound of water, fell on a thin figure. As if aware of the chill, Li Ju tightened the jacket that covered her body. She was lying on her side on the bench, with one arm as pillow and curled up as hard as she could. She looked extremely petite, like a little milk cat curling up to keep warm. When Chi Jinkai came, he saw Li Ju's peaceful sleeping face. He looked at Li Ju with interest, with surprise in his light gray eyes. I didn't expect to meet her here. He came to tonight's auction on behalf of his old man. The old man was old and liked to be quiet. He didn't like to go to crowded places, so he sent a few juniors here. But he was worried that something might happen, so he asked Chi Jinkai to watch. Chi Jinkai didn't want to come to a place like this, but the old man was stubborn and it was hard for him to resist. He only plays a supervisory role. So as soon as the reception started, Chi Jinkai left while others were not paying attention. I wanted to find a quiet place with no one around. Unexpectedly, I saw a little guy curled up on a bench sleeping. Tisk, does the old man count it as an assist? Pay tribute to the heroes and pay silent tribute to the deceased. Hope the epidemic will end soon. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 20. Chapter 20, Brother, are you in love? The little guy doesn't seem to be sleeping peacefully. There is a thin layer of sweat on the white forehead. The bright red lips were tightly pursed, and the cicada-like black eyelashes were trembling. Seems to be a nightmare. Suddenly, Chi Jinkai's eyes paused and he slowly stretched out his hand. Unexpectedly, Li Ju suddenly opened his eyes. The seductive peach blossom eyes met the indifferent phoenix eyes. One has a suppressed temper. A hidden light. Both of them were stunned. Li Ju looked at the big hand close at hand. The fingers are long and slender, with clear joints and as white as jade. Even if she wasn't controlling it by hand, she still had to admire it at this time. She didn't react for a moment, her eyes were filled with confusion. The next second, her expression changed and she sat up from the bench. The windbreaker slipped off, exposing her delicate porcelain white skin. The moonlight reflected on her white side face, giving her a layer of soft light. Chi Jinkai was slightly startled, and his outstretched hand paused in the air. Li Ju looked at him warily. Who are you? How come this person is here and she doesn't notice it? The man has a tall and straight figure, broad shoulders, and narrow waist. His blue plaid shirt and black suit pants make him look cool and dignified. His complexion is cold and white, his facial features are handsome and meticulous, his eyebrows and eyes are dull, and he has an aura that even she can't see through. Li Ju raised his eyebrows slightly, a hint of interest flashed in his eyes. This person. Interesting. She pretends to be as cold as a flower on a high mountain, and seems to take everything in the world very lightly. But her intuition still sensed the danger. The danger of being dragged into the abyss if you are not careful. Chi Jinkai stared at her with his light gray phoenix eyes, his thin lips pursed into a line, and his eyes looked at his outstretched hand with complicated eyes. Somehow, Li Ju strangely read a hint of annoyance in his eyes. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a while. After a long time, Chi Jinkai moved slightly, and stretched out his hand straight towards Li Ju. Li Ju's body suddenly tensed up. The big hand passed over the top of her head, and his slender fingers picked up a leaf. Chi Jinkai's thin lips were slightly opened, and his voice was low, "You have leaves on your head." "Thank you, thank you. You're welcome." The atmosphere was awkward again. Li Ju looked at him with increasingly strange eyes. She couldn't see clearly. What on earth does this person want to do? Chi Jinkai himself was a little confused. He felt that his mind was not normal tonight. Obviously she has a mysophobia, so why did you help her remove the leaves? Two people, one is sitting and the other is standing, looking at each other without saying a word. Li Ju felt more and more that this person was mentally ill. but... She touched her chin and looked at Chi Jinkai carefully. This man is really a top performer. At least among the men she knew, there was no one who could compare with him. That's right. This person is Li Ju. In addition to having an unstable temperament, he has a bad temper. I like to beat people up from time to time. Exceptionally drowsy. Still a pretty dog. Performance control is at full level. At that time, the president asked Li Ju to choose his own team members. So she picked the ones with the best faces. The president was so angry that he almost lost control and beat her to death. Is it okay to mess around with this kind of thing? Can I be eaten if I look good? However, Li Ju told him that it was really possible. If there is a good-looking person standing in front of her, she will be in a good mood, have a good appetite, and her force value will be high. President, what kind of logic is this? In the end, there was nothing she could do. After all, the strength of the person she chose was directly proportional to her appearance. He had no choice but to follow Li Ju. Over the years, Li Ju has been baptized by the good looks of her team members, and she thinks that there are few who can catch her eye again. As a result, she met the best person today. So Li Ju ignored her instinct that had been loyal to her for many years. Completely ignored the consequences of angering Chi Jinkai. Trying wildly on the edge of danger. She raised her head and looked at him with bright eyes. Brother, are you in love? Chi Jinkai. Li Ju licked her red lips and murmured, I seem to have fallen in love with you at first sight. Chi Jinkai looked at Li Ju with difficulty in speaking. Just now he was surprised at his abnormality today, and the next second he heard her words. Complicated feelings. You were looking at him warily just now, but now you actually said this. Chi Jinkai felt that he could not see through Li Ju. You. You. Chi Jinkai asked uncertainly in a hoarse voice, fell in love with me at first sight. The corners of Li Ju's lips curved, and a smile filled his peach blossom eyes. She leaned slightly closer, and a sweet fragrance poured into Chi Jinkai's nose. Those peach blossom eyes were glistening in the microwave, staring into his phoenix eyes, and slowly said, Little brother, have you never heard, the so-called love at first sight, it all means, seeing the color. The last sound is raised, which is extremely attractive. Chi Jinkai felt like he couldn't breathe for a moment. Li Ju looked at his stiff expression and smiled even more in his eyes. She stood up and approached Chi Jinkai. The height of over 1.7 meters can only reach a man's shoulders. Li Ju curled her lips and felt a little unhappy. As the strange smell approached, Chi Jinkai instinctively dodged. His brows were furrowed and his eyes were dark. This feeling is very unfamiliar, but it is not as disgusting as before. Just about to say something. Then I heard Li Ju say another shocking sentence. Little brother, I'm greedy for your body. Chi Jinkai. Chi Jinkai, ah. It's over. Why do I feel that the male protagonist is a little broken? Is this feeling of being teased a big deal? End of this chapter.